Everybody. Thanks for coming along today and for your time. I'm very pleased to be here and to give you a quick overview of what we're doing at Talon. Very much this is the start of the story for Talon. Talon's an ASX listed. If James said Coro is a micro cap, then we're a micro cap. We're an ASX listed company. The company's been in existence for a few years, primarily with an East Texas onshore focus. I became involved in Talon about in the later part of 2017 and approached the company, which was essentially a shell, to say, look, I can help you look to raise some money and look for new assets and refocus the company. So from there, we recapitalised it. We put about $2.5 million into the company to go and help us look for new assets. We reset the register, and through that process, we struck upon a strategy of entering into the North Sea. So there's various reasons, after picking over a lot of assets the world over, why we ended up there. And this will feed into the strategy, which I'll outline to you shortly. But obviously, it's a well-known, by probably all of you, a world-class oil province, production history there of some 50 years. A lot of billions of barrels have been produced. There's probably another 40 billion barrels left to be found there. There's strong discoveries still being made. A case in point, as earlier this year, was a 250 million barrel discovery by Total and CNOOC at Glengorm. And the timing, I think, is right for a small company like Talon. The government at the moment has seen a bit of a decline in production, less exploration spend in the area, and they're really encouraging new players to enter the market, particularly smaller companies. And they're doing that by their licensing rounds, innovative new approach to licensing, where you can pick up assets on a yearly basis through licensing rounds on very cheap work programs for 2 or 3 year periods before there's a drilling commitment, to see whether you can essentially fund those projects. And that's what we're really trying to do. And we're trying to fund those through industry funding at this stage. There's a high quality subsurface database there, evidenced by the recently released national data repository run by the OGA. There's some all publicly accessible. There's 12,500 well bores, 5,000 seismic surveys, 3,000 pipeline surveys, all available. So for a small new entrant like this, there's a world of data and information out there for us to access. So our investment criteria and what we're trying to do, we're trying to utilise our significant technical experience that we brought into the company, and I'll touch on that in a little bit further. We're trying to pick up new early stage, interesting exploration equity, fund it from the industry and sit at around a 20%, hopefully carried position in those blocks, and build out from there. So interesting strategy. How does a little company from Australia that's a new entrant to the North Sea compete in an area like that? The answer is we find the right people. And I think we've done that through our recent acquisition of a company called Encounter Oil. Encounter is a private UK company set up by 3 fellows who have got a long and storied history of exploring in the North Sea. It comes with 2 exploration licenses, which now Talon owns 100%. That holds the 107 million barrel best case Sky Moose prospect and the 27 million barrel Rocket prospect. Graham Doré has recently joined the Talon board, and Paul Young is our new geoscience manager. The structure that the purchase structure we struck with Encounter is a staged, incentive-based, script-based consideration. And I'll just take you through their team. From a geoscience perspective, these guys are some of the most impressive people I've come across in sort of 15 years of working in the industry. They've been involved in some of the largest and most successful oil discoveries in the North Sea over the last 2 decades, including the Buzzard field, which Graham and Paul licensed at Encana, mapped, farmed out and drilled. That's a nearly 800 million barrel recoverable field, the largest producing field in the offshore North Sea. 2006, they founded a company called Encore Oil. They were involved in the Brea gas field discovery, which is a 600 BCF field there. Sold out of that at the right time, and then went on to discover the Catcher series of fields, and then exited Encore for a 200 million pound plus transaction. We've got 3 acreage positions in our portfolio. As I said, Sky Moose and Rocket, which come as part of the Encounter transaction, and another appraisal asset at Curlew A. Just touching on Sky Moose now. It's 107 million barrels, as I said. It's a direct analogue to the Buzzard and Golden Eagle fields that Graham and Paul were both involved in Encana. Golden Eagle's a 150 million barrel field. It's a large Jurassic age stratigraphic trap. It's on trend with other discoveries and producing fields in the area. It's pretty shallow drilling. It's relatively low cost in the sort of 7 or 8 million pound range. Wells in the area take about 14 days to drill. Very straightforward, and we've just started to market that for a farm out. We've had very strong interest at an early stage, even before we started marketing this. We've had companies come and approach us rather than us approaching them. And you can see on the map, it's got a pointer, but where the yellow blob is, which is the prospect, you can see the license area is actually 2 blocks. This is the first time in around 30 years that those 2 blocks have actually been licensed as a whole. So no one's had the opportunity to look at the prospect, define it, and drill it as a single piece. So we're very pleased to have that in our portfolio at the moment. As an example of how these bid rounds work, there's a supplementary bid round, and which is running at the moment. We've just submitted an application for a licence area immediately to the east, abutting the Sky Moose block. So we're hopeful of landing that through the bid round process this year. So if the drilling at Sky Moose is successful, we'll have a protection acreage play there, where the play types we can see there's other interesting prospects and leads, the same as Sky Moose. So we're hoping to tie up some more acreage there. And we'll be able to use the bid round process for hopefully that very purpose. The second prospect that comes with the Encounter transaction is a Rocket prospect, more modest in size, but it's still 27 million barrels in the best case recoverable. But what's interesting, you can see the field to the green blobs to the north. That's the Catcher series of fields, and they're all oil discoveries that were made by Encore Oil, so Graham and Paul, in their time at Encore. These were amplitude anomaly plays that they drilled. There was 3 that the guys drilled at Encore, all found oil. They then sold out to Premier and Can, and who went on to drill 4 more discoveries. So basically every time they drilled one of these amplitude anomalies, they found oil. Rocket is a recently awarded license picked up by Encounter, and again, it's got the same amplitude anomaly sitting within that prospect. So we think that's quite low risk. Obviously, if it works, there's a quick tie back to you can see the Bergman field just to the north of there. That's a very short distance, and probably we're not the natural owners of that asset should it work, with Premier and Can and Dias being participants in the Catcher field. Catcher's doing 70,000 barrels a day at the moment. It's very successful. Lucky last, because I'm running out of time, but is the Curlew appraisal asset. It was the first piece of business we did in the North Sea. We farmed in. It's an existing late 1970s shell discovery, 45 million barrels in the mid case, a 4-way dip closed structure, hasn't been drilled. Last licensed by Shell, who were asked by the government to hand it back in 2016, having not drilled the appraisal commitment. Shell have actually gone around and picked up every block around it in the last bid round, so they like what they see in the area, although they no longer have access to that block. We're hoping to drill that in the later part of this year. It's quite a low risk. It was the first asset we brought into Talon in the North Sea with a view of trying to have an easy win. So just from what we got going forward, as I said, what we're attempting to do is really pick up new licenses through the bid round process. They run on an annual basis, and hopefully drill a well later this year. I think I'm out of time, but I'm at booth 16. Be good to see any of you who want to stop past. Cheers.